All right, we're here today. This is a long time in coming. We've got our dear friends Rachel and Jay Mitlo here with us today, and I'm not even gonna go any further because the origin story here is one of my favorite CrossFit
Aw.
Pittsburgh stories
Aw.
of all time. Also with us, if you kick out one of those no bulls, there, babe.
Your foot.
There we go. My wife, she's monitoring things off camera. So anyway,
Just gonna keep us in line.
this is actually it's more your and Jay's intro story here. So if you would please, could you tell us how this whole thing started?
So Rachel was not necessarily what you would call an athlete growing up and in high school. Played softball,
Yes.
but wasn't really an athlete, and had gone to the gym a couple times in just gyms. And then after our second,
Third. Do you want me to tell it?
Sure.
Okay. So, let's go back in time. It was 2008. We had our third baby, and a dear friend of mine had asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. And so I knew, all right, I have about 9 months. I got to get,
Hannah.
yeah, you know,
See, I got that one right.
need to get back in shape. And our YMCA had just closed.
No.
Whatever. Anyway, needed to work out. Didn't know what to do. Didn't know where to start. And Jay says, "Well, you know, there's a CrossFit gym down in Verona." And I said, "What is CrossFit?" Because he was following UFC, and a lot of the fighters were doing CrossFit. And so I looked it up. I'm like, "Oh, I can't do that. Like, there's no way. Like, no, absolutely not." And he goes, "Well, I already made an appointment for you to meet with Jen and Mike." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, we're going tomorrow morning, so go find your shoes." And I was like, okay.
And so I said to her, I don't want you to go to the Y and do the legs out, legs in, and then go stand on the treadmill, and it's not going to work. And I knew the cross training was the way to go, and so I stopped down at your location in Verona, and I wandered in and met Jen and saw some of the ladies there. And I always tell the story. There was one lady who was like 65 years old who carried her little notebook.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know if it was that time or later, where she was so excited because she was able to carry her 5-year-old grandson through the
Yeah, I,
airport.
I I remember that. Yeah.
And so, I told Rachel, and we went down, and you could probably take it from there.
So met you guys, came in, did like the
On-ramp.
CrossFit on-ramp type workout thing, and was like, "What? I can't squat, I can't do anything." And then I went home, and I think I cried
Yep.
a little bit. And Jay was like, "Well, you have to go back, or else Jen's gonna think you're a quitter." And I'm like, "I'm not a quitter. I'm out of shape." And he's like, "Well, then you have to go back." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." And so went back and got hooked. I mean, it really was like a really immediate, like, oh, okay, I can do this. It is working, you know.
Right.
How was it different than, if I may take your role,
Please.
how was it different than your expectations?
Well, I didn't have any expectations because I didn't think I could do anything, but it felt really cool to get on a barbell. Like, I'd never touched a barbell before, didn't know, or like a pull-up bar or anything, and just to be surrounded by other people that have the same goal and the, same attitude, like, okay, I can't do this yet, and how do you work towards that, and that progression, and then very quickly being able to do kipping pull-ups or deadlifting. When I got to like 95 pounds, I was like, ooh, yay, I did it. And now maybe over 200, I don't know, but like to see that progression and actual results. And I think feeling strong supersedes being skinny, and that's sort of the trend now, where like, I'm never going to be a size 0 again. That's fine, but I'm strong and I can do things, and that's much more
That's
powerful.
such a great line. I'm strong and I can do things.
Yeah. Right, that's much more powerful
Make
than
a t-shirt of that.
Right. That's
being
why
a
Jen's
size 0.
scribe
Take it
is
up.
off camera.
Take a note.
Taking a-
Yeah.
But I love that because lately one of the things that we've been able to do was and I wanted to do this, and I just came to maybe like two birds with one stone almost. I wanted to do a profile on all of our coaches, to kind of like, hey, what brought you to CrossFit in the first place? What brought you to CrossFit Pittsburgh, so forth, So Byron and I, our schedules linked up, and it was really neat, getting his perspective, because what's fascinating, just like now, is how long have you been a member of our community? How long have we known each other? But the intricacies that you didn't really like, that to me ties back, and I mentioned this with Byron, I mentioned this with Blake, Chris Nolan when he was with us. One of the things that he said to me that I was really, I wouldn't want to say blindsided because that sounds negative, but he said, one of the things I really love about you guys. I was like, I can't imagine, like what's happening right now, And he said, and this was when social media was probably in its, like, maybe not its infancy, but its toddler period. He said, when you post photographs, and this, honest to God, never crossed my mind.
Not intentional.
Right? He's like, when you post photographs of everyone, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and then and if in that instant, I was like, oh Lord, like, should I have asked? Should we have a waiver? Like, I didn't think. And before I could even form a question, he went, no, I mean, I think that's great. He's like, when you look at a lot of the other websites, he's like, it's the pretty people, it's the fit people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I mean, they're out there, right? But I think too, to me, the essence of CrossFit was, this is all inclusive. Like, this
Right.
works for everybody. It works for anybody. And so really for me, it's so much fun hearing individual, and what was funny too was, like, I remember that part of the story better than anything, when you talked to Jen and you're like, hey, and I, for some reason, I thought it was a class reunion, not a wedding. But I was like, hey, it's on the calendar. I want to be prepared. I want to be in better shape than I am right now today, So that was was one of my favorite parts of that story.
Well, and going back to social media, I think that's partially why CrossFit can seem intimidating, because when you Google it, you only find like CrossFit Games athletes,
Right.
and what they're doing, and there's like, I can't do that. I'm never going to be able to do that. But that's not what the body of CrossFit is. I'm sure if you go into any affiliate, it's going to be average people just wanting to do better and get stronger and move forward, and so that's what CrossFit is accessible to everybody.
Well, I think there's an interesting parallel between our professions, because people can say, oh, like, you only show the pretty people at CrossFit, except you don't.
What's your profession?
Oh, I'm a pastor of a church, of a very non-traditional church, if you will. But, like, people will say, like, oh, church is full of hypocrites, there's a bunch of sinners and everything else. And you could say, like,
in church?
Yeah, but
what?
Look at, does CrossFit not work because there's out of shape people there?
Exactly.
Right.
We're here for the out of shape people.
Exactly
And
right.
I'm a pastor to help the jackasses.
Oh dear.
And have them be a little less jackassy.
Yeah,
And have
exactly.
them be a little more loving.
Exactly.
So yeah, did he hurt your feelings? Probably. He's not a very nice person, but at least he's working on it.
Right.
I may not be an elite athlete, but I'm working on it.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
Love that
And
correction.
yeah, for sure. And I think too, and this was very, very interesting. I remember when this happened, before ownership of CrossFit changed over. There was a strong movement, if you recall, that, and I remember his exact words, Greg, I guess someone questioned him about the future of the CrossFit Games. And he said, no, look, the games are not going anywhere. They'll always be here. They'll continue. And he said, but I think, and I'm paraphrasing this part, he's like, I think you might be missing my point. It's not that we're not having the games anymore. I just think it's time that we return CrossFit to its beginning, when it was, broad-based universal fitness for everyone. He said, I never intended, I mean, the CrossFit competitions were always a fun part of it. But he said, basically in his wildest imagination, he never thought how big the games would get. And at the risk of maybe pulling away from, hey, this is for everyone, not just the elite athletes. But I don't, I never thought, why can you not do both?
Sure.
Right? Why can you not? I mean, there are some, excuse me. I think the games now attracts, world-class athletes, right? Their fitness is their sport, but that doesn't mean that, and I guess from a marketing advertising point of view, you're exactly right. It is a challenge. I always equate it to the old Gold's Gym logo, right? You take a Gold's Gym franchise and you put it on like Everyday Fitness. It's I remember there's a place right in Harmerville. I think it's Alexander's for a minute back in the 80s, 90s. They were a Gold's Gym affiliate, and from one of the managers, like it was the worst business period of our entire existence because it was just off-putting. You know, regular people would be like, "Oh no, that's a gold." I was like, "That's for look at the sign." You know, it's a big, bald, muscle guy, you know, bending a barbell or something, right? I mean, that's not for me. You know, forging elite fitness. You know what? I wish you had your own microphone.
You
I
know
would
what a good
turn it
CrossFit
off.
logo would be like two people on a chin-up bar. One is a ripped, you know, CrossFit athlete, and the other's like a grandmother with a band around her foot, and it's like, this is us,
Right.
Exactly.
It is.
That is
Yeah.
cute.
Right.
and
I
then like
love-
two others cheering her on or something.
You know, when the theory of CrossFit is, you know, when you question what does fit mean and how CrossFit touches on all aspects of that spectrum, you know, when you look at somebody who only runs marathons
Hmm.
Right.
but can't carry their luggage through the airport, does that fit?
Exactly.
Versus somebody that can deadlift 500 pounds but gets winded walking up, does that fit?
Right.
Exactly.
No, you need
Right.
to touch on all of that. And I feel like in my job, I work as a paraprofessional at a school, and we're constantly, like, I use CrossFit movements all day, every day.
Right.
Right.
Like, it does translate to functional fitness.
Right.
So,
Real life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's, you know, 19 years later, that's why we're still doing it,
Mhm.
because it's been a great trip. You know, it's been a great trip. So, and the one thing I remember from the story that I always loved was, didn't you say, one of you said to Jen, now, once this event takes place, you probably won't see her again.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Maybe it could have.
Well, it could have been one of the voices in my head.
Might have been. But
It
No,
might
because
have
I
been.
mean, it
So
was
no.
within, I would say, 3 weeks. You were in, like
Oh,
you
yeah.
weren't stopping.
right. Yeah. And that was it. Like, within 3 weeks, you start to see your postures a little bit better. Your like, clothes are fitting better. It was
Yeah.
doing what it was supposed to do.
Right.
So I was in
Right. And how long ago was that?
2008.
2008.
Mm-hmm.
That's a while.
Yeah.
So it was only 3 years into you guys having it that we did that.
Yeah. Because I was I had just turned 18,
Oh,
Right.
I think.
Well, and you were not.
I was not there most
you were
of the
not
time.
there most of the time. It was so we would all bring all of our children and lock them in a room. We didn't really. We didn't. They were well
But
cared for.
hey, listen though,
Side room.
that was a neat that was a neat room,
It was
wasn't
the
it?
beginning of Alex's babysitting career. She was in charge of all the
Exactly.
children.
Just so anybody watching doesn't think anything, it was a waiting room in what used to
Yes.
be an automotive garage that was secure from all sides. You could get into it from the gym space, right? But that was the only room in the building that was climate controlled.
Yes.
Instead of the high ceilings,
couldn't open the door
you
from
could
the
not. You
outside.
could not get in from the outside. You had to come through the gym to get in there. And clean private bathroom. We laid it out like a TV room. Hey, we took a
Sofa,
nice leather sofa from home.
puzzle
Yeah.
games,
Blues Clues.
video
Blues,
games,
all the
that's
videos and all that.
And
you
never
know?
lost a kid.
Never lost a
No.
kid.
They were all well accounted for.
They
we
were.
never left the gym. It was fine.
Except for Michael, and that's when he entered upon a brief phase in his life where I would call the ass biting stage.
He did bite my bum.
He did. He did.
And
And
he
he
was a
would
child at the time.
Right. Yes.
It wasn't
The-
recently.
the first no, God no, he was a toddler. He was like maybe 3.
Well, they started in 2008. He was 3.
He was 3, yeah. Well, crazy, but yeah. And I remember the first time he did that. Jennifer and I were standing, unfortunately, within swinging distance of one another, and we're watching the class workout. I will never forget. The movement was overhead squats, and it was a young girl, Kelly, I think her name was, and she's got the barbell overhead. Right? He came out like lightning. I mean, just in the door into the room, he just went zoom. He runs, and the kids did know, like, hey, if you want to come out and say hi, stay out of the middle, stay away, don't get in. Okay. He runs out, runs behind us, says hi, and as he's about to turn and go back, he crosses her path. I don't know what catches his eye, but he stops right behind her, grabs her butt, bites it, and runs off. But as he disengages, he goes, delicious. And he runs off. at that moment, I'm like, ugh, right? Like from off camera, I get smacked. I don't laugh. I gasp. I'm like, oh, whack. I'm like, what are you hitting me for? You know?
To be clear, he doesn't bite people anymore.
No, he doesn't.
Fair.
That we know of.
We know of.
Yes, let's hope he's not a closet biter. But so yeah, 2008. That was wild.
Yeah.
So much history between then and then. You got your L1.
Well,
When-
skip some. So Jay, then after Rachel started,
Please.
then Jay.
So what was great, even though I never did and still have not done CrossFit, I have much different functional fitness. I appreciate it. And so I was head coach of a girls volleyball team in Penn Hills, and we would always run conditioning. And I always kind of felt like we're not really equipped for this. Like, because I'm a coach, because I know the X's and the O's, doesn't mean I know how to physically develop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would take a lot of what she was doing, and then I went, wait a minute. And so you actually came out for one season to a church that I knew,
Yeah.
and then we came the next season. Is that the way it worked out?
I actually think we
Or is that all
started
in the
at
same
the
season?
Gym. No, I think we
Or
started
did we go the
at
other direction?
Gym. Yeah.
But I had Jen train my volleyball team because, and I have to preface this, it was an elite team. It was the best team I ever had, and I've never had a team like that since. I mean, some of the teams I've had since then, you would have killed all of them, you know. But there are some, like if you remember, there were two Kayleys on my team.
Right.
I mean, Corey, you obviously remember, who became an elite athlete and still is actually. She's playing professional volleyball now.
Amazing.
But one girl, there was two Kayleys, and so the second one I called K2 because you can't have two Kayleys.
Mhm.
And since high school, she's been in like demolition derbies, and
Oh
like
my
on the side of her
gosh.
car is K2.
Oh wow.
Oh,
She's had
wow.
a couple kids, and she actually mentioned recently, I think she tagged you guys,
Oh, how funny.
that she's started doing CrossFit back
Oh,
then,
that's
and that's
awesome.
began her career
That's awesome.
Wow.
of that. And it was so much fun watching them work out, and,
Yeah.
and it
'Cause I'm
helped us
pretty
to
sure
the
we
best.
did it for at least 2 summers.
Right. Maybe you moved this by the second summer, and so you came to us.
Yeah, that might
You went
make
to Washington
sense.
Boulevard.
Exactly. That might be why. I couldn't think why we would have. So that makes sense. You're
Right.
right.
Mm.
But I'll never forget the one time. I'm close enough to the microphone.
Please.
One of the girls, she was complaining about she might be sick, and she told us she had Fruit Loops right before she came in.
Don't eat the Fruit Loops
Exactly.
before the workout.
And so Jay, so casual as always, was like, "Go throw up, and here's a stick of gum." I was like, "Rock on, let's roll."
Well, I always loved
Oh,
Jen when
dear.
we were working out and we're just dying on the floor, and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm gonna throw up. And you're like, if you can talk, you're not gonna throw up. Keep moving. And I was like, okay, yes, ma'am. All right, I can do it.
And you've never thrown up while working out.
No, I have more. No, I'm gonna stop before that. I've seen it happen. We've cleaned up after people, but I'm gonna
Right.
stop before
Right.
that happens.
Yeah.
I'm not that dedicated.
Well, you know, I mean, sometimes it's not to be graphic or stupid or anything, but sometimes I think that's one of those responses that you might have already reached a point where you're going to throw up. You just haven't gotten there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you slow down, stop, what have you, the damage is done. But one of the things I remember from Washington Boulevard was
Oh gosh, don't
there
throw up in the
was
sink.
in one of the bathrooms there was a closet, and in that closet was a utility sink. Now in the bathroom itself was a commode and a sink. Some rocket scientist, and it was one of the college kids, I remember, he would come in, he would train, probably hungover or like
Yes.
not eating, sensibly before a workout, more than once. And this jabroni would throw up in the stationary sink that in the closet.
Yeah.
And every blessed time, I'm like, oh God, it's like, how in the world were you raised by wolves? Like, and this is
and not clean it up.
right, like basically run water and leave it. And I'm like, because that'll help. That'll help, Oh, and I remember like the second time I cleaned it, and I know my beautiful wife will attest to this. I've seen some things that people shouldn't see, and I was okay with that. I'm not okay with it, but that
Yeah, you don't.
is
like
one
throw
of
up.
my buttons.
Yeah.
Rinsed off throw up.
So as I'm trying to clean it up, I'm going, "Vroom,"
Yeah.
And now I'm making myself sick. I'm like, this is terrible. So yeah, let's not go down that road
I
again.
brought a
But
girl with me one time. She wanted to try it, so I brought her with me to a class, and
Who?
she had taken
Okay.
a bunch of what do you call them, thermogenics
Oh,
beforehand
yes,
that
sure.
raise your internal temperature. And she's like, "No, I work out. I'll be able to handle it." I'm like, "Okay, well, stop if you need to. Let's rest." And she was like, "No, I can do it." Nope. About halfway through, she runs to the bathroom, and like it was a bad combination. She never came back, but it's fine. It's fine.
But I think one of the hidden benefits for you, if I may be so bold to say, was the fact that it gave you a whole new world. You know, we all have our different tribes or whatever else we
Yes.
roll with, but then all of a sudden here you are and hanging out with people that you'd never hung out with before. I mean, like
Yes.
like getting to know Byron and different ladies and it was just such an amazing community for you to have a different, not a new identity, but a different facet to your own identity.
Yes,
Mhm.
I agree.
yeah, that is, and I think sometimes CrossFit is one of those places that, and it's certainly again not in a negative way, but two people at a grocery store, or wouldn't even strike up a conversation. Like I'm looking at something, and you're not going to go, hey, looking for something? Try one of these. I think CrossFit is one of those places that forms the most unusual friendships that might
Right.
not happen somewhere else
Right.
because
Absolutely.
your paths wouldn't cross.
Yeah, there's
you
no
know.
way. And I think even looking at the classes today, there's different politics, different religions, but it doesn't matter. When you're in here, we're all in the same goal, and none of that matters.
Right.
And it's more about the community, which then brings us fast forward from 2008. In 2010, our youngest son Trey was diagnosed with pediatric cancer. Sudden, you don't anticipate that ever.
You didn't schedule it.
No. And it was on Christmas Eve. So everybody was, at home doing their own Christmas. And so I think I messaged you maybe that Saturday, because that was a Friday. So I messaged you Saturday, like, hey, I'm out for the foreseeable future. This is what we're dealing with. And we had to go to the hospital on Sunday to check in. And Monday, he had to have a bunch of procedures done to prep for chemo. And we're sitting in the waiting room. And wait, go ahead.
No, you said it.
Well, we're sitting in the waiting room waiting as he's in surgery getting some stuff done, and in walks Mike and was it Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, with a laptop, because we didn't have a laptop computer, and to be able to be in the hospital and show DVDs and stuff, and we were like, hi, yeah, and that was like the community. Like we were never, and you said immediately, whenever you can, stop in. Don't let us know, just come in for a class,
Right.
check in, whatever. And it was and that was over a span of 4 years that he went through treatments, and he passed away in 2014. And again, the whole CrossFit community was there for the, viewing and the funeral. And
It wasn't Murph, but you also did that one day.
the cure,
yeah,
hope for a
Hope for
cure,
cure.
hope
Right.
for a cure.
right. Which didn't Hope for a Cure stem from Fight Gone Bad?
It was a Fight Gone Bad because
Yeah.
you were doing, but you did Fight Gone Real Bad
57. Yeah.
because you did 25 rounds
Yeah.
or whatever
Yes.
it was.
Yeah. Well, let me
Trey
back
was
up a notch.
disgusted by you.
Yeah.
Touch you.
I know.
Give me a high five, and he was like,
He was like, I'd really rather not, dude.
It's like first cancer, now this. What?
we're eating oranges with the peel still on, and he was like, I don't know what's
Well,
happening.
listen, though, I do have to back up a notch because this is one of the most embarrassing stories, but
I know what you're gonna say.
I will share this. So I remember when the subject of the laptop came up, so as a community, like any other tribe, you draw, all right, throw it out the net, like, what do we got? And we had a lot of feedback in the immediate moment. And I know that it was all in good intention, but like one of them, a dear friend of ours, he's some high caliber dude with IBM, and he was like, hey, he's like, I got a few laptops at home. They're old work computers. Let me scrub them up, sanitize them, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, all right, dude, tick, tick. No disrespect, but before I could even react, Chris direct messages me. He goes, hey, He goes, I got a Best Buy card that I get reward points on. He's like, let's go, right? Let's go now.
Right.
I'm like, whose car are we taking, right? So he and I go. We go out to Best Buy. We pick a perfect, like, hey, this is good for DVDs and the yada yada yada.
We
We're
still
like,
have it, by the way.
we're like two little kids. We're all geeked out, right? I drove, which is even more the embarrassment. We jump back in my car. We drive, right? We park in Oakland, okay? We get out of the car, and because that's my old stomping ground, Central Catholic, University of Pittsburgh. We're walking. He's got this shopping bag, and it's cool. It's cold, right? It's like a brisk day, and I'm like, the energy levels are high, positive energy. We literally get to the spot on Fifth Avenue, and there's a chain link fence all the way across, and there's a hole in the ground. There's no hospital. It looked like what I've seen elsewhere, like a J dam hit it, and there's just a hole, a crater left. I'm like, and I actually looked at him and I go, where's the hospital?
What happened?
Jay and Rachel are gone.
He looks at me, he looks at me and he just goes, then all of a sudden, I don't know why, but like it was like God like flicked my ear at that moment, and I'm like, oh my God, it's in Bloomfield. It's the old St. Francis Hospital. I'm like, we're not telling anybody about this. And he's like, okay, now we're telling, whoever listens. But so we got to the hospital. So that was embarrassing.
I think too, like, more to that point, not specific about the computer, but I feel like that's what our community, that's where we've been lucky all of these years. Like, I remember when you guys put out a post about how Trey was loving the train tables at the hospital. And I talked to Mike and I said, my dad, wanting a grandson so badly, bought this train table before we even had Michael. And it just kind of sat there waiting for a boy. So then we finally have Michael, and my dad passed the same year. And so, so it was always special to us. We had it in his room the minute he came home from the hospital after he was born. But when you put that out, I thought, Michael's growing out of that train table, and as special as it is to us, it's even more special to me to be able to give it to someone who really wants this. And it's something that made him so happy at the time. So we were so happy to be able to do that, or like the spaghetti dinner, or, and I feel like, and it's not just us, it's our entire community. Like, the minute there's a need, and it doesn't all have to be bad.
Right.
If it's something exciting, it's something to celebrate, everyone comes out.
We've had weddings, we've had
Yes,
babies.
exactly.
Right. But I think that goes back to the point you're making, not making, but the focus is the community.
Right.
You'd only been around 2 years when Trey was diagnosed. No, that's not 5 minutes.
Right.
But because of the focus on the heroes and the hero challenge, like, you don't shy away from the fact that life is messy,
Right.
and that we don't gloss over it.
Right.
If you throw up with somebody,
Yeah.
you're going to go and you're going to cry with somebody,
Right.
and you're going to celebrate with somebody, and it's very real.
Right.
Right.
You can't hide at CrossFit,
Right. Exactly.
and you can't be fake.
Right.
You might try,
Yeah.
and so we know what real is.
Mhm.
You know what real is, I should say. And so when there's a need arises, you step up because, well, that's what you do.
That's
Right.
I agree.
Right. Yeah. No, and I remember what else we did around the holidays. We had
Remember we
the
used to do the gingerbread house?
yeah.
Yes, that was so fun. I've
I
never seen you eat so much candy
Oh, that is kind of alarming.
before or since.
every time I think of that, I can't. I literally, if I'm alone, I laugh out loud. There was a point, I don't remember how many kids they're all set up in the dining room, I think.
Right.
And the way the house is set up, like, you could go out of the dining room through the hallway, around the front to the entry to the living room, and then back around. And at one point, I guess the houses were mostly done and decorated. Now we're just kicked back having fun. And Trey comes through, he comes around, and we had all those like little, like Chinese food containers with all the glitter and whatever. So he comes around and he grabs a handful of like whatever, colored sugar or whatever. And as he runs, he goes, woo! And I don't know, one of you,
Like, we talk about how we can still hear that laugh.
Yeah.
Coming into it.
and like, I think you were like, Trey. And that was probably the only time in recorded history I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, do it again, man. You could do whatever you want. That was just so much fun in that moment. Oh my God,
Ric Flair.
glitter, and I'm like, yeah. So
Well,
Some of
and
that
he
glitter's
loved,
still in your living room.
in my hair.
No.
he loved to give Jen like the good open mouth kisses.
Oh.
Hey, listen.
You would be like,
Who doesn't?
I was
That's
here for it.
that's all I'm saying. I remember those. I remember. Vaguely, it's like in the dim. I think I was an ensign at the time.
No.
But it's
Not
crazy to
sure.
think of you that first day, and then all of a sudden, you become a coach,
Yes.
and like
Right.
that elevation within your CrossFit program
So
career.
that was I came back officially, and again, throughout those 4 years, I would stop in and be like, attempt to work out or just make sure I can still like jump and reach the bar, whatever. In February of 2015, came back, like, kind of stuck my head in, like, can I come in? And you were
Right.
like, come on. And then in March, the opportunity came up to take the certification
Right.
course, and I was like crying again because I couldn't do anything they were asking because you got to retrain. But it was a good opportunity. It was because I wasn't working at the time, and
Right.
now without having that kind of schedule, and I was kind of at home because the kids were back in school and kind of at home doing nothing,
Right,
and like, well, I got to do something.
right.
So
Because from our perspective during that time, because I remember you had just started coming back. And so I went home and told Mike, I was like, here's my intention. I'd like to ask Rachel because I just feel like maybe the redirection or a new focus will help, because to be honest with you, I was so afraid at that moment if you were going to be able to stay consistent. And I was worried because I thought, well, is this going to help or is it going to be too much memory? Like, who knows? Like, you just don't know how you're going to react. You watch a scary movie. Why would they run that way? Well, you don't know. Until you're in that situation, no one knows. And, and I'm sure, like, I know you and I, Jay, you and I have had this conversation before where no one ever knows the right thing to say or the right thing to do. And there's so many missed opportunities to not just put it out there. Like, I'm always so overly cautious. But I said to Mike, I said, I want to ask Rachel if she'd consider. Like, I think we should put her through. And so I remember talking to you about it, and so glad when you said yes. And I'm sure it was stressful because it's not easy. It is vigorous, and
which is good. You want your
Right.
coaches to be well trained.
Right,
And there's
right,
a lot of
right.
information to be on the other side and be like, oh.
But to throw that at you at the last minute like that, I was just so grateful, though, that you agreed to it, because from there, especially, like, I always think back to your 12:30 classes.
Yes, I was just gonna say that
and
birthed
how
the
you're
12:30
so
class.
adored. Yes,
I
and still
loved
to
it.
this day.
We were small but mighty, and it was, I loved the 12:30 class, and that was sort of my class.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
other coaches weren't available. Like,
Exactly.
And,
But I
so-
think from, I've been in ministry for a very long time, and I study emotional needs and all that stuff. But I just led a 13-week session of Grief Share, which is a national, maybe international program to help people recover from loss. And it's weird because I'm not a facilitator. I'm a teacher, I'm a preacher, I'm a coach. I don't facilitate somebody else's program. But I was able to do it. And the one thing that really stuck with me was when somebody is stuck in grief, whether it be in the first 2 weeks or 3 years, one of the best things you can give them is traction. Just a little bit of traction to start the new life without their lost loved one. And I think whether it be intentional or not, that was a great bit of traction for you. That okay, this has happened, this is what it is, but now I can move forward in this area. And I think it was a brilliant move by
Which
you.
I'm glad, and it worked out. But I'll never forget when you were offered that full-time teaching position.
See, I cried again.
Oh.
I feel like I've cried with you more than I'm not a crier. I don't cry easily, and I've cried
I
with
can't
you
list
more.
the times you have cried.
So,
No, but with Jen, it's been like every couple years. I just got to get it out.
but at that moment, I remember thinking, as long as you're not leaving. Like, I think in my mind, I was like, that's it. She's leaving. Like, this is it. We're saying goodbye. And that's what was running through my brain. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. okay, you're just getting a job. That's okay. I'm like, that's all right. Oh
Yeah,
my
so
gosh.
since working, I've done the 4:30 class because
Right.
that's perfect timing because my school is right there and I'm done at 3:30 and come here at 4:30. You know, it makes for a long day, but
Yeah.
oh, and then we didn't even touch on the whole pandemic
Oh,
time of being
Oy.
shut down and working out from home and
yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
which was great. That was so generous. Again, going back to community, you guys were like, "Hey, we have to be closed, but if you want to borrow equipment, come get it. Take a picture of it. Let us know. We'll do Zoom workouts, which
Yeah.
were harder than in person. I'm just gonna
Yes,
say,
yes,
with Jen
yeah.
like zooming in on
I
the
did.
yeah,
But didn't you feel like I was just so happy to even have people to talk to and look at?
Right.
And
Right.
I was like, okay, let's get done with this workout. Let's all just sit for a
Right.
second
Mhm.
and check out each other's animals, kids, what's going on.
Right.
Because it was just such a nice break from your day-to-day grind of staring at the same walls.
and then trying to get back into in person.
For
and
sure.
Those obstacles and
For sure.
it was a
Yes,
crazy time
yes.
and whatever, but we made it through and
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So, would you tell me, our listeners, about your book?
Well, so the first idea was shortly after Trey died. I wanted to compile a basically copy and pasting all of our Pray for Trey Facebook messages because it was so impactful. It helped us so much. And so for 2 or 3 years I would cut and paste. And you know, with Facebook, you can't type in December 24th, 2010. You have to hit
Right.
older entries, older entries.
Yes.
At times it would take me 45 minutes to get back to a date to copy and paste.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for a few years, and it ended up being 1,100 pages long.
Oh, wow.
And I realized, well, that's not a book. You can't do that. So in 2021, I started writing this book. And do you even know why? Like, I don't even remember what made me do it.
No.
Thanks. And it would be in the winter when I couldn't work on the disc golf course and I had some downtime. But I was always burdened by two things after Trey died. One was that we stayed faithful during all the Trey days so that we could show that, you know, your faith in God is not contingent upon his performance for you. And so we wanted to give God the glory, and given the eulogy at his funeral, I did that. But everybody says we're the greatest. Oh, we're great, we're great, we're great. So they give us the glory, not God the glory. And I never wanted that. I wanted God to get the glory. So that was taken from me. And number two, to those who are in their battle, if somebody is diagnosed, their child is diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, and somebody says, oh, you should talk to Jay and Rachel Mitlo. Oh, they could help you. They always ask, well, how did it end for them? And they go, well, their son passed away in 2014. Nobody ever calls.
Yeah.
I always say to those who are in their battle, we are the face of death. So I thought, there's got to be a way I can use all this experience and the wisdom that, this may sound a little bit arrogant, that God blessed me with through this time so that our kids could survive, even if Trey didn't, and our marriage could survive when most don't.
That's right.
So I started writing it, and it's half our story, each chapter, and then a for you, because you're not us. You don't have the resources. You may not be a member of CrossFit and have this community coming alongside you, but it's helping any parent, because there's a book, What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Right.
There's a book, What to Expect in Your First Year. There's no book that I know of, What to Do When Your Child Gets a Life-Threatening Diagnosis. And so I hired a company to help me put it together, and my content editor suggested a third section of every chapter, which is, well, if it's right now, it's our story, how to stand for the parents, because the book's called Stand. So how to stand, but then how to help them stand. You know, when you said you guys got together, or even like you said, I don't want to barge in and ask her to be a coach right away, I don't know. And so very often we don't do anything.
Right.
Well, the other fault people have is they think they know how to help, and they barge in, and they think they're the experts. And in my line of work, as far as being a Christian, they're some of the worst. They're like, oh, well, we know exactly what to do,
Right.
and they run roughshod over somebody who's suffering.
Right.
So in my book, I teach people, here's how you come alongside somebody. Here's what they need. You know, when somebody's angry at God, a Christian very often becomes God's PR, rep. They don't need that. They need you to say, yeah, this sucks right now.
Right.
And so you said, how did it get started? That's how it got started, and really what it is. And we talk about, like I said, CrossFit. We talk about Joe's jiu-jitsu coach and them, and how important it was to have other people in your life. It's really, the book's a lot about community.
Right.
And what to do when you don't have it, and how blessed we were because we lived a life of community before Trey was even diagnosed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, so when I saw that you wrote the book, my immediate thought, if I'm being very honest, was, I don't know if I want to read it. You know, and I thought, to quote Rachel, I know how it ends. Like, you know, so there was that moment I thought, oh, I don't know. Your videos have been amazing, because then when I heard what you just said now too about how it helps people on the outside, helping people that are going through that, I thought, then we all need to read it. You know,
you can skip the Trey part.
Yeah.
I mean, you
But
really can. You can
truly,
go right to the For You and the How to Help.
right, because, you know, even right now, like I look at my sister who has a coworker who has cancer, and I thought, you know, there's always going to be someone who's suffering some way. It doesn't always have to be cancer, but there's some kind of suffering happening. And if we on the outside have some idea of how better to approach this, I'm all in. You know, because I think that is the worst thing, you know, not knowing what to say. What is the right thing to say? You know how I feel. Like, yes, I understand that giving glory to God, for sure, 100%. But you two were amazing. And you were. And I know, you know, we don't see the ins and outs, but the grace and how beautifully you carried yourself and dealt with it. Sitting through that eulogy, oh my gosh, just thinking there's no way. I could never. Look how amazing this man is going through this. So you don't give yourself enough credit, but I also understand where you're coming from. You know, thank goodness you had your faith to hold on to and keep you strong. But you still owe yourself some credit on that too.
Were you going to say something because you were leaning forward?
No, I just wanted to see her better.
But in regards to the topic of comfort and help, like, I remember you guys coming into the hospital with a laptop. I don't remember what you said.
Yeah.
I didn't remember Chris was there. You know what I mean? I do now that you say that.
Sure.
But back to even like the funeral. With all two things you impacted me in several ways, but two major ways. With all due humility, whatever. You were a blubbering mess. And that meant the world to me. Like, here's the toughest guy in the world, the toughest SOB, broken for us, for our son, for our, you know, his little sister, Rachel, you know, or whatever you are to him, and whatever else.
A thorn in his side.
There's no words
No.
for that. If he would have spoken, he would have ruined it, you know, but it was that. And then the other story of when you post the picture of your brothers and you say, if I respect you in battle, I call you brother. And I said, yeah, but you called me brother, and you said, I know what you said. And I was like, oh. You know, I guess I'm not a little wimp after all, you know. But because I know how much you value that. That meant the world to me, you know. And so, back to your point, it doesn't have to be how to love somebody who has a child with a diagnosis.
Right.
My content editor said to me, Jay, the first 2 days I sat with your book. Now, nothing has been edited yet. She's doing it. She goes, I just sat and cried. And I thought, oh yeah, our story, you know, it's pretty impactful. She knows a family that had a daughter that just lost their life to a seizure disorder, and she was their teacher. And she said, I thought I knew the family pretty well. But to be very honest with you, I had observed them, watched how they did things, and I judged a lot of what they did. But having read your book, it gave me insight as to what they were really going through. And I felt ashamed of some of the judgments I had made. And I was like, oh. And again, most things I do successfully are mistakes. Like, I do the right thing, but I think it's for this reason.
Right.
And so here I am like, oh, I'm going to help these parents. Or, you know, like, if this book existed when Trey was diagnosed, I wouldn't have read it. I'd be like, I'll figure it out on my own. I'm good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
But my sister Kathy, my sister Mary Lynn, and Marcy, they had about 6 copies of it, underlined everything.
Right.
So I think, oh, that's going to be the impact. But maybe it's going to be helping people help. Because it's sadly, again, some people just choose not to help.
Right.
And sometimes the ones who do try to help.
Yes.
Not the kind you need.
It's easy to miss the mark. You think you're helping.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike P, my nephew, yesterday. He goes, "Is there a chapter on being funny?" And I said, "Actually, there is. There's one that's okay to laugh." And I list all the different awkward things. He goes, "No, no, no, no. When you want to like lighten the mood, but yet you always do it at the wrong time."
Right.
And I went, "No, I can't teach that."
Right.
He's like, "Because that's all I ever do is say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it ends up."
Yes.
And
It's difficult.
I just want to interject this because when you said, you know, what are you to me, you know, and you're like a thorn in his side. No, I'll tell you this.
I just did that.
Oh.
I will tell you this,
Sort of thing.
and I don't remember as much as I used to. I just don't. But I remember this vividly. And these were like little, what'd you call it? Like just what you need when you need it. Okay. And it was never like always on Tuesday when our paths crossed, whatever. But it was Washington Boulevard was a problematic location. Like leave it at that. It was a problematic location, and we had some unruly neighbors who were just, in a word, just disrespectful. And every blessed time I would drive in there, I would literally on my way, I would pray, and I'd be like, "Lord, I feel good this morning, I really do. I'm going to thank you for that, and whatever happens, I'm going to handle this in a better way." And I failed every single time. And I'm not saying that to be funny or facetiously.
we are.
I failed every time. And while I was doing it, it became like one of those things I think people describe as not an out of body experience or anything, but I don't know what that is, but like it was like I was watching myself do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I might as well be sliding on ice right now because I know what to do. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still going. It's like a runaway train. And it was after an altercation, and I say this again in all seriousness, I never once ever started off, even when I was, you know, oh, look at this, now I have to deal with this right now. I never started off with malicious intent, ever. I would always, excuse me, sir, ma'am, excuse me, always. And every single time it would take a turn instantly. And I remember talking to you about this, usually after it happened, while it was still like fresh. And I'm like, I don't get it. Rach, I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like, what am I missing? What's missing in here that I can't? And without a moment's hesitation, you looked right at me and you were like, it's about respect with you. I was in the middle of a moment.
So sorry.
Wait,
I'm so
his
sorry.
exact words were,
It was so-
"It's about respect with you."
I know.
No, here, let's crank out a TikTok video.
TikTok.
You kids, you screenagers. That was bad timing. But, and I thought what was so, because you have a very, I don't want to say bubbly because I think that's insulting, but you do have a personality that's always like
Joyful.
friendly, welcome. Hey, so today, even like you're about to brief like a killer workout. So what we're gonna do today, and it's gonna smash your testicles in a vice, but
Oh, she would love that.
but
Fun.
but I think so. I'm used to that, and I kid you not. In that moment, the first time I realized it, and it was like this every time after. The first time I'm like, what am I, Rach? What am I doing? Like, what am I missing? All of a sudden, you were like, zoom, and you just went. With you, it's about respect, and when you realize that you're giving it and it's not coming back, she's like, you know, very politely was like, and that's when it turns.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh. I'm like, well, okay, all right. Then I started to really kind of look at that, like, well, then I need to toughen up a little bit because am I being thin-skinned? Am I being overreactive? And I do. Sometimes I do attribute this, and I think once in a while, if I hit it on the right lunar cycle and I ask my wife in the right tone of voice, I'm like, I believe I am getting better. And she's like, you know,
Oh, but that's a
a little bit.
I will say yes.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yes. Because I have seen you handle situations where I think previously you would have been like, there's the door.
Yes,
And you've been
I
like,
agree.
okay, we can think about that. Or what, like, I can't think of a specific situation, but there have been times where I was like, aw,
Mike didn't kill him.
Mike didn't hurt him. That was so nice.
I don't get mad no more. You said me the same thing.
Well, yeah, but you know what? And I mean, listen, and it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a small matter, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's just, well, I'd rather have anger issues
Right.
than endure what you have.
Sure.
Every day. I would be the meanest, nastiest, most cantankerous person until the day I die. if that were the case.
But we're all called to different things. You were in battles in your career that people, that are insurmountable. Well, we were in a battle emotionally that was there was going to be loss. But yet, so we don't choose it. When we all have different ones and we're equipped differently to handle them. But what I want to go back to your respect issue, because there's a phrase that I've come up with, which is if you're not aware of your emotions, you'll be manipulated by your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, I'm pissed off. Okay, well, what's that code for? You took respect from me, and I highly value that.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, but if you're not thinking that, you're just in this moment. So it's like almost like combat.
Mm.
There's a weakness you didn't know about. So now you're like, oh, wait a minute. When somebody takes respect from me, I lose a little control.
Right.
Well, then I'm not going to let you do that anymore. You know, people are just angry or sad or frustrated.
You need to write down that quote. That was, I'm like, it's still stuck in my
Because
eyebrows.
It's recorded.
It's recorded, honey.
But
Thank
your
you.
emotions are what, if they're met or not met, they either make you feel happy or positive or negative.
Mhm.
There's variations of both. But people aren't aware of what their emotions are. And so the gift you gave him was, oh, it's respect. You know, it's respect. And you were
And
like,
they were disrespectful.
Well,
everybody was
but
disrespectful to him back then.
But I will tell you this, though, right? First of all, Taliban's trying to kill me. You know,
Right.
ISIS is on deck. But I will say this though, in that moment, just when you dropped that on me, it was like, huh, like it did lighten the,
Well,
you know.
she saw through Big Mike Petrogallo to a heart of a man who values something. And she's nothing if not sincere.
For sure.
No, and I appreciated that. I really did. So I value your counsel, you know, and I think too, and this is a big thing that I put a lot of. I think you and I both do back there. I think we both do. Is I don't. And social media is probably the worst for this because it enhances these occurrences or whatever you want to call them. I don't need a cheerleader, right? Especially when I'm doing something stupid. Right? Oh, I'm with you, Mike. I'm with you. I'm like, I wish you weren't. Stop. You know? I mean, if life had a like button, disconnect that. Right? Because there are times when I would, you know, pop off through, you know, knee-jerk reaction. And that's another thing that I appreciated was, when, you know, you were like, well, you know,
Slow down a little.
is that really? And you know, I think too, and my beautiful wife tries that, but with a little bit more of maybe a more harsh approach.
There's more history and more entrapments from that being perceived. Whereas you got no history here. It's just her saying whatever.
Yeah.
It's harder to do that. That's why relationships get so messy. Because there's too
Messy.
much background.
It's true, but I love you. We're a beautiful mess, you and I, right? And not many people know this, and I'm going to say this because the first time Jen dropped this on me, I was like, oh my God, that's actually funny. Jennifer is convinced, because we're big Sarah McLachlan fans from way back, doing our courtship and whatnot.
Sadly, I've seen her live.
She is. So did we. So did we. We had like the most Anyway, Jen.
You were a couple. I was just a guy.
Listen, I'm going to say
That's
this.
a different podcast.
I'm going to say this though. If I was single,
You'd be a piano.
I'd be Mr. Sarah McLachlan.
Really?
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Oh,
Huh.
Hey, I don't even mind that she's from Canada.
Oh.
well.
I'm gonna flip over.
If she turns the piano bench sideways, then. You know what I'm saying?
Listen,
Okay.
so Jen is still, I think maybe still convinced that I am in fact the beautiful fucked up man that she refers to in Building a Mystery.
That was one of your vows, wasn't it, Jen?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
For
will.
the wedding?
We wrote that right in there.
Oh,
I mean, we're all
Sarah,
a hot
Sarah,
mess.
Sarah.
We're
Yeah.
trying to do the best we can.
But I think too though that's the thing where there is that balance where you're like, you know, a friend's going to tell you when you're headed down the wrong road, stop you from going too far down that road, where and you know again I kid around with you a lot, but I swear Jen is like, I'll put something out and we'll watch the comments and I that's one thing I do. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If I was the last man, like Charlton Heston in the Omega Man, right? Now I'm not even giving credit.
You're showing your age.
I am, and you know why? Because I'm making a stand right here.
Back when a movie was a movie.
When a movie was a movie, when Charlton Heston would never leave his seat, go up on stage and slap somebody at an award show. Okay, then they remake that movie with that little Will Smith with the big ears. No bullshit. Chris Rock, if that was The Rock, do you think he would have done the same thing? I'll leave it at that. That's all. I'll leave it at
He'd be
that.
in on the script.
He'd be in something. He'd be in Traction, I think, probably. But I digress. So if I were the last man on earth, and somehow yet the internet was not destroyed, and I still had my Facebook account, I would still post. I would, because I don't do it for a reaction. I do not do it for a reaction. But I think that's one of the things too that Jen has kind of been more keen on than I am. She was like, all right, watch what kind of feedback you get and be mindful of that. Like, is that really what you want to be oh, man, that is not what I intend. So delete. I mean, I'll delete the whole post rather than take someone's, yeah, we're with you. I'm like, I don't care if you're with me or not. I'm not even sure what that happens. So, but I've always appreciated that, even when it's like, you don't ever.
Approaching a bear.
Oh, come on. All right. But,
Like, wait.
Yes.
but I
Yes,
do.
it is.
No, there's not a
But it's a
thing.
bear that'll listen to you. Because you've
Right.
earned the right to be heard.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Earning the right to be heard. Because there's very few people that can do that for Mike or in any cases. And I think that you have to have earned that position to have that approach. Because if anyone else tried that,
Because he respects her opinion.
right, exactly. No one else could get
We
away
should
with
be
it.
friends.
You want to play mermaids?
For the last 16 years, we should be friends.
Right. No, in this last Memorial Day, for example, one of my oldest, dearest friends, Alan Phillips, and his wife came up for Memorial Day weekend, and it was just so, I don't know, like it's not like it's a spritzer. I'm not saying like, oh, it's that refreshing. I don't mean it like that, but he is one of those souls that when I'm in his I just kind of go,
Aw.
and I said to Jen, I was like, there are not a lot of people that put me at ease like that. You do, both of you do. And I said to Jen, she was like, watching those, he and I interact, and his wife, she's just wonderful. And Jen was like, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was something to the effect like watching your whole personality when he's around. And very, very matter of fact, I was like, one of the only guys ever that's been able to kind of keep me between the lines, and Mark was another one. He was just kind of like, although Alan has like, that like Southern charm way to deliver it, where Mark was a Jersey boy, So he was just kind of, oh, here we go, But no, and I think those are the things. If you get to a point in your life, my father always used to tell me when I was a kid, oh, my friend, my friend. And that's the way you raise kids, like everybody, all your classmates, everybody on your baseball team, you're all friends. But I guess as a little bit I got older and you keep referring, oh, my friend Joe, or my friend Tim, and my friend. And at one point, I don't remember how it came up, but it was like, I guess one of those life lessons. And my dad was like, Champ, listen to me. He's like, you get to be an adult. He's like, if you can count your number of friends on one hand, you're a very fortunate man. And I've held on to that. I really have. I was like, what, that is kind of cool, because otherwise there may be just acquaintances or people who've crossed your path, but friendship is something to value, and you certainly, you're dear friends of ours. I mean, that's it's been a great journey, I think would be the best way to say it.
It's a great beginning to a journey.
Right. Awesome. So anything else? I mean, I can't wait. What stage is the book in now?
So it's in the proofreading part, which is the third stage of editing. So I would say probably about a month we'll be able to launch it.
All right.
We're going to have some events, and we really want, like, one of the ideas is we went with, at least as of now, I have today's Thursday, big meeting tomorrow with a guy, but I want to self-publish it because, for a couple reasons, it's my book then. If a publisher gets it, they can change it, they can do whatever
Right.
they want. And it's not like I want it in bookstores, per se. Like, who's going like, oh, maybe someday my child will have a life-threatening diagnosis. I should buy this book. But I really want to market it through our network all across and have people buy them and give them to hospitals, buy them and give them to service organizations. So unless something changes with that whole process, it'll be a little over a month or so.
No, I mean, I get that. I appreciate that perspective. And I don't know anything about,
Sure. I know very little.
I don't know anything about fancy, book,
Words.
right. But when you said, like, to sell it in a bookstore, I disagree. I think that would be something that, and I hate to say this,
Yeah.
but I think everybody knows somebody, even if it's not by first degree. By I know a coworker who has a niece who's going through. So I think but I do like your approach. Is
Oh, I'm not going to say no.
right, right. No,
So
but I
That's
do.
not where you're starting.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
But we'll see.
And
I'm meeting with a guy tomorrow. Who, it doesn't matter. But a guy's sort of a big wig, and somebody said, "Would it be okay if I set you guys up to talk?" And I was like, "Yeah." You
No.
got 30 years experience helping Christian authors. Yes, I would like to speak with him.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we'll see where it goes. But we're looking at about a month.
Oh, fantastic. Well, like Jennifer said, and I think this is one of those like an oxymoron. I can't wait, and yet I don't know if I can read it.
Right.
Yes. Well, and
You know.
I have not read it.
No.
Like,
Well, again, start at the For You section.
Well,
Right.
that I love that perspective. I really do. That's kind of, that's kind of.
And I've had to realize that, like, when I got my first edits back, and it's in a Word document, whatever else, and I just looked at all the red on the paper, so I took a picture of it, screenshot, sent it to my 3 sisters, and I was like, oh, that's a whole lot of ink, and I didn't realize they're going to read the words behind it, and it was like when he was diagnosed. It wasn't even like a tragic moment, and they're all sending me back texts of tears and crying face emojis, and I don't know if I can go through this, and I was like, oh. I've been sitting with this book for 3 years.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
I didn't realize how raw it is for a lot of people, and so it's like, oh, that is going to be weird. We'll see.
Oh, love it. But yeah, I mean, honest to goodness, in this last hour, I mean, I forgot about the because that was the year. I swear to God, it was like it had been Fight Gone Bad, and then they changed the name, and that was the first year CrossFit for Hope. It went from Fight Gone Bad to CrossFit for Hope, and I do remember that, like it was yesterday.
We did it over at the Fire.
We did.
I mean,
We
it's
did,
a
and I.
slightly different workout. It wasn't Fight Gone Bad.
No. It
Because we
wasn't.
did
It was
the
CrossFit. It was CrossFit for Hope.
Yeah.
They changed the movements, and
Right.
that was one of the things. And you know what? I can say this now because it's nothing, to keep a secret. But I guess my thing with that was always I when it was Fight Gone Bad at the benefit of the Wounded Warrior Project, and I don't remember what year I started. The first couple times we did it the way it was, 3 rounds, boom, with a
Right.
partner, so forth. And what possessed me, I think for me, it was one of those like, well, I can't change places with you. I can't put myself in your shoes, but what I can do is I can hurt, And I remember, it came to me. I was like, okay, we're taking online donations, and I put it out all over social media, and I was like, anyone who's ever served with me, whether in the Navy or at the agency, ever, I'm like, we're doing this for this cause, and I said, for every $100 donation I get, I will add 1 round
Yep.
Yeah.
to Fight Gone Bad. And I said, now that's not $100 donated. It's every single $100 donation. So I think the first year I remember, and of course Jen was like, oh my God, you are so stupid. Like, why would you
did
do
not
that?
think this through.
And I was like, listen, I'm not. I did think this through. And my thing is, do you think after the first 3 rounds that I'm going to still try to, I'm not going to get those numbers every round. All I have to do is just get up every minute after every rest. I just got to get up and go again. That's all I have to do. And I can't believe you remembered that. The
Yes.
oranges with the skin on.
Yes. You were like.
I was because we had like bags of orange slices and
Yes.
water. I was so hungry by that time. I was like, these oranges are not getting it done.
Right. Probably dehydrated.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I'm like, the oranges itself is not getting it done because it's basically like flavored water,
Yeah.
So I would eat the rind and all that. I could just get something in my stomach here because this is getting ugly. But I do. And it was our friend Dave D'Alessandro. I think the first time I went into the big numbers, I was probably at like 12 rounds or something. And I was like, okay, great. And then in the 11th hour, he makes a $1,000 donation. And I'm like, I don't know if I love you or
Right.
I
Thank
want
you.
to run you over with a truck.
Two
But
things can be true at the same time.
right. But yeah, so that's what started that. And
But wait, I want to, real quick, you said something that made me think. You said, I didn't have to complete it. I just had to keep starting. I just had to get to the next round. And the title of the book is called Stand, which is based on the Bible instructions of the full armor of God.
Right.
There's the belt of truth, the sword of the Spirit, all that stuff. But at the very end it says, do all these things so that when the day of the enemy comes, or the day of evil comes, you can stand. And that got me through it because it was like, oh, I don't have to conquer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to advance. I just have to not crumble.
Right.
And so your story was like, I just got to get to the next round.
Yeah, I just
You
have
know?
to answer the bell
And
every time.
and
That's all I got to do.
have a bunch of people that they'll just text me #Stan. This is long before the book,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that means, hey, I'm in the war right now, and I need somebody to stand next to me because I just don't want to crumble. You know, failure is the only thing I can't do today. Everything else is a win. So
Yeah.
there was a
I
picture
love it.
of you doing that. I was trying to find it. I'm not just being rude.
No, please. Listen, I'm not shy about pictures of myself, unless they make me look portly.
Yeah, I love that picture. There's one, I'd have to find the photo album on Facebook, but it's from behind, and I think you were trying to give Trey a high five. And he's looking at you like,
I have my hand out. I have my hand out like,
he's like,
yeah. He's like, I'd really rather not.
no, thank
You
you.
know?
He's like, where's my friend Jen?
Oh my
It's
God,
like, how about we do?
that was. And
Well, to
then
be fair, he also snubbed Sidney Crosby. Like
Oh
we're in the
my
locker room, and I
that's
said
right.
right next to him, "Do you
Oh,
want to meet
that's
Sidney?"
right.
And he goes, "No."
I don't
Sid.
feel bad.
Yeah.
Good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to
Oh, I will find it.
find it quickly.
No, they can.
But listen, not many people know this too. But when it became CrossFit for Hope, that year we did it at the Fire Academy because we had some dear friends who were instructors at the academy, firefighters. They allowed us to use that PT area that they set up in the grassy knoll, if you will. We had a banner, CrossFit for Hope banner. It's still in our archives somewhere, and somebody was like, "Hey, why don't you go up and hang it from the windows in the fire tower, the training house?" I was like, "Yeah, good idea." So I got like a length of cord, like as they're setting everything up. Get a length of cord, pocket knife, and I go up. And I tied it around one window. And then I went around to the other side, like through the line around. And as I'm reaching out to pull it up, I almost fell out the damn window. I wasn't paying nearly enough attention that or the window's lower. It would have changed. I don't think listen, I'm going to say, I'm not sure I would have gotten all my rounds
If you would have fallen out the window.
had I taken that. But
I believe in you.
being CrossFitters, I'd have probably nailed that landing. Gotten yelled at by my wife. I would have. I'd have done a Thor landing for sure. Boom. Right.
Hey, I'm saying I use CrossFit movements at work all day, every day.
Yeah, you do.
Do Turkish get-ups with toddlers. That's what I do.
You literally do, though. That's the funny
I
part.
don't hold them up above my head. But
You
when they're
should.
sleeping in my arms on the floor, I
Right.
can get up to
What
standing.
about when they're actively pooping or throwing up? You keep them far away
Well,
from your
yeah,
body.
so I can go like that.
At arm's length.
Yeah. No, it's functional. It's bringing it all back to functional.
Functional fitness.
And you're going to carry me through the airport when we go to St. Lucia next week.
Yes.
Just like that grandmother carried her grandson.
Yes.
Nice.
That'll be special.
I like it.
That'll be nice.
I like it. That should be what's the new thing that all the kids are using now? Tick space or something? Snapchat. I don't either. Do you snap? I'm like, go away.
You try
Now.
for
You're like, I
5
wish you
minutes.
could. Yeah, I had Snapchat for like 6 hours.
Right? So now I will say this though. This is invasive maybe, but I don't care.
Yeah, I lost it.
Jen and the kids are on Snapchat. So they do their what do you call it, a streak?
Yes.
So they
Gotta keep
they
it
they
going.
said.
That's right.
So I'm not invited. I'm invited. I'm just irresponsible. So I'd ruin the streak. But what is funny is Jen will be like, okay, where's our boy? Like she's checking. Oh, he's at the frat house. Oh, he's up at his dorm, or wherever, which I think is pretty cool. So.
Well,
I found the pictures of that day, but I don't have the one of Mike going over to.
Yeah, I
Trey.
can't find the photo album.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do it.
I don't know why I don't have that one because I have the picture of your kids over playing under the pull-up bars.
Yes.
Oh, even Zach is there.
Oh,
Aw.
wow.
Yeah, we've had some crazy
Right?
experiences.
Right?
I'm living life. That's all.
Yeah.
It's community.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Ups, downs, and sideways.
And I'm never, ever, you will never hear, I mean, reality TV, I'm not sure that reality TV is not a big part of the decline of our society. I'm really not sure that it's not,
Sure.
But then I look at it and I go, but what's really kind of pathetic though is look at the nature of the reality shows. There are, what values? There are none. Maybe what we need is a reality show of and I
Normal life.
think,
Nailed it.
oh my
I found
gosh,
it.
yes. Yeah, look at it. The look on him, he's like, "Ew."
Yeah.
Like-
Like,
Good.
geez.
Get away.
Please
Of course,
acknowledge my presence.
He's like, orange skin eater, get away.
yeah, that's, oh man, that's a great picture.
He's a babe.
That's a great picture. Thank you. Thank you. But, yeah.
That's not even the one I was thinking of.
You
but yeah.
smell weird. No.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. But you know what, though? I think what was great about not those times, because we're just in the 2.0 or 3.0 version of it, you know? Like you said, it doesn't have to be anything bad, the way the community rallies, you know, and we take on, you know, like Murph, for example, you know, that's a big deal to the CrossFit community. And I think every year, it's one of those things that you go, you know, and I do think this, and maybe it's all part of the process. I would think last October was the 20th anniversary of my losing my teammates in Gaza, right? And I think it was the first year that I was really aware that I'd kind of maybe turned that corner where I was now celebrating that they lived, you know, because before that, I mean, it was dark.
Sure.
And I remember thinking, I was like, "Man, you know, it's carrying this for 18, 19 years is heavy, you know."
Right.
But I think that's the thing, you know. This last year was like, and I don't, and then ironically, right? I wanted to launch the first episode of the podcast on October 15th to tell their story, and of course, you know, October 7th happens, you know, like unprecedented, unheard of, and that really kind of rocked me a bit, because I'm like, okay, here we go, right? Same group, same bad guys, only now they are essentially like they have become ISIS. You know, they're no longer like a secondary group,
Rock
like
throwing.
working in the
Right.
in the shadows, you know. And the audacity of an action like that on civilians again. I think that's the part that gets me the most is, you know what, pick a military target. We could still be enemies, and you still will lose, but pick a military target. But you're not, because you're not soldiers, you're not warriors, you're not even men. You know, that's the most cowardly, dastardly act, to target elderly women, children. You know, but I get off the point. But right. But I do remember I really wanted that to be the launch. I came down with, I'm going to call it the flu. Jen decides she's going to get, because you know what, she always got to do a little bit better, a little bit faster than me, right? So Jen goes and gets COVID. Then her grandmother decides she's going to join in on the action, and she does a swan dive on our patio.
Rude.
Yeah, Walker goes one way, she goes the other way, lands on her face. It's crazy. But yeah, so that kind of put us off a little bit. But I digress. But first, a word from our sponsor. Wrapping it up, guys. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
this was
much.
fun.
This
On
was
many levels, thank you.
this was great. This was great. I really appreciate you being here and sharing this with
I'm
us.
glad you stayed, Jen.
Yeah.
She's
You and
still
your shoe.
you and your shoe. We haven't seen the shoe for a minute, but Noble.
About to see it up your ears.
Right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
That's all. Thank you.